Late in the evening, after a long and exhausting day of shopping at the supermarket, I finally made my way to the parking lot. The day had been particularly hectic, filled with errands and responsibilities that seemed to multiply as the hours passed. I had been rushing since morning, barely managing to grab a quick lunch between tasks, and dinner was the last thing on my mind. As I stepped into the dimly lit parking lot, a wave of unease washed over me. The flickering lights cast long shadows, and the air felt heavy with an unsettling silence. It was as if the world outside had faded away, leaving me alone in this eerie space. As I walked toward my car, one couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. My heart began to race, and I glanced around, trying to catch a glimpse of anyone nearby. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist, and I felt a chill run down my spine. Memories from a few years ago flooded back, memories I had tried to bury deep within me. I recalled a terrifying incident when I had been chased by a stranger while out with a friend. The fear and helplessness I had felt then resurfaced, causing my heart to pound in my chest. Why was this man targeting me? Had I unknowingly done something to provoke him, or was he just another passerby? My mind raced with questions, but the anxiety clung to me like a heavy fog. As I approached my car, one hurriedly fumbled with the keys, desperate to get inside and lock the world out. Just then, I noticed a figure emerging from the shadows. A man was starting to approach me. His expression was blank, but the way he smiled sent chills down my spine. It was a smile that felt more like a threat than a greeting, and I could feel my pulse quicken. I tried to leave the parking lot, but he stepped directly in front of my car, grinning at me as if he found my fear amusing. Panic surged through me, and I quickly locked the doors and started the engine, but he remained in my way, blocking my escape. My heart raced, and I felt paralyzed with fear, my mind racing with thoughts of what he might do next. Just then, a car horn blared behind me, breaking the tension. The man turned to look, and I seized the opportunity to reverse and speed away, my heart pounding in my chest. As I drove out of the parking lot, I couldn't shake the thought of why he had targeted me. The idea of what might have happened if that horn hadn't sounded sent shivers down my spine. Once I was safely home, I locked the door and replayed the events of the day in my mind, trying to make sense of it all. The uneasy feeling lingered, and the man's haunting smile stayed with me, a ghost that refused to fade. I made a vow to myself I would never go out alone late at night again. Since that day, every time I entered a parking lot, his smile flashed in my mind, a constant reminder of the scars of my past. The experience left me feeling vulnerable and anxious, and I began to question my safety in places I once considered ordinary. One day, while shopping at the supermarket with a friend, we stumbled upon a hidden passage that led to the back storage area. Our curiosity piqued, we decided to venture inside, following the dark corridor where strange noises echoed ominously. The sounds seemed to grow closer, and I felt a chill run down my spine. I wanted to hide my unease, but I could see the tension etched on my friend's face. "This place feels a bit off," I cautiously remarked, trying to gauge his reaction. But my friend, ever the adventurous one, replied, "Let's go a little further. We might discover something interesting." As we walked deeper into the passage, the air grew colder, and the dim light flickered above us, casting eerie shadows on the walls. My heart raced with a mix of excitement and fear. At the end of the passage, we spotted a man engaged in suspicious activity with a box. He was hunched over, his movements quick and furtive. My heart sank, and I whispered urgently to my friend, "We should leave now." But he was drawn in by curiosity. "Just a bit more. This is really intriguing." He insisted, his eyes wide with excitement. Trembling with fear, I grabbed his arm, desperate to pull him away. "This is dangerous. We need to go," I shouted, my voice echoing in the narrow space. My anxiety was palpable, and I could feel the tension rising between us. In that moment, our disagreement escalated. I was anxious about my friend's reckless curiosity. "You're always so reckless. We could be in real danger," I yelled, my voice filled with panic. My friend countered, "You're just being overly cautious. This is just curiosity." The man noticed us and shouted, "What are you doing here?" My heart raced as I wanted to run, but my friend held me back, insisting we explain ourselves. "We didn't mean to intrude. We'll leave now," I called out, my voice trembling. The man hesitated, his eyes narrowing as he assessed us. Just then, we heard other employees entering the passage, their voices echoing in the confined space. The man stepped back in surprise, and we seized the chance to escape, our hearts pounding in unison as we rushed back toward the store. As we returned to the store, we exchanged glances filled with fear and relief. "I think we were in a really dangerous situation," I said, my voice shaky. My friend nodded, still processing what had just happened. "I wonder what that man was up to," he mused, his curiosity still piqued despite the danger we had just faced. But I was worried about my friend's recklessness and how it might affect our friendship. From that day on, we decided never to return to that supermarket. The experience taught us a valuable lesson. Curiosity can sometimes lead to danger. Yet, I couldn't shake the anxiety about how our relationship might change after that close call. I found myself questioning whether my friend truly understood the risks we had taken, and I worried that our differing perspectives might create a rift between us. Late in the evening, after finishing my shopping, I found myself at the supermarket checkout. The store was nearly empty, and the fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows that danced across the floor. Suddenly, I felt someone staring at me from behind. When I turned around, I locked eyes with a man who was watching me intently. As soon as our gazes met, he quickly looked away, but the strange behavior sent a wave of unease through me. I tried to ignore it and completed my purchase, but the feeling of being watched lingered like a dark cloud. After gathering my bags and preparing to leave, I noticed the man standing behind me again, his presence making my anxiety spike. I hurried to exit the store, my heart racing as I walked toward the parking lot. With each step, I became increasingly convinced that he was following me. The urge to run surged within me, and when I reached my car, I quickly locked the doors and started the engine. To my horror, the man stood directly in front of my car, smiling at me in a way that made my skin crawl. I trembled in fear as I tried to reverse, but then I heard another car approaching from the side. The man stepped back in surprise, and I seized the moment to drive away, my heart pounding in my chest. As I left the parking lot, I couldn't help but wonder why he had been following me. The thought of what might have happened if that other car hadn't arrived sent chills down my spine. Once I was safely home, I locked the door and replayed the day's events in my mind, the unease still gripping me. The man's unsettling smile haunted my thoughts, and I resolved never to go to the supermarket alone in the evening again. That experience left a deep impact on me, making me realize that the world isn't always safe. Since that day, my anxiety around people grew, and past fears resurfaced, leading to a growing distrust in my relationships. I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder, feeling as if eyes were always on me. The once mundane act of grocery shopping became a source of dread, and I began to avoid the supermarket altogether. Friends noticed my change in behavior, and I struggled to explain my fears without sounding irrational. Each time I entered a public space, the memory of that man's smile would flash in my mind, a haunting reminder of the vulnerability I felt. I realized that the experience had not only affected my sense of safety, but had also begun to erode my confidence in social situations.